Good Shabbos, everybody. Chag Sameach. Sure you'll agree with me, it's a beautiful, beautiful Shabbat morning. Kayla, you did outstanding. But, no. Relax. You got time. It's a long morning. I know you're eager. I know you've got beautiful words of wisdom to share with us, which we're going to hear later on. But my sermon for this morning, Kayla, was written with everybody in mind, but particularly with you. I'm not going to test you on it afterwards, but the message is in there for you. If we turn to the Talmud, when it comes to Chanukah, the Talmud asks the question, my Chanukah, what is Chanukah? Not that the rabbis didn't know what Chanukah was, they knew what Chanukah was, but there's another reason which I'm not going to go into that now. My Chanukah, what is Chanukah? On this Shabbat, Sukkot, first day, I ask a similar question. My Sukkot, what is Sukkot? Now the answer is, of course, that it is this holiday where we build a sukkah. Okay, you'll see it outside a little bit later on. And too often, unfortunately, particularly here in Montreal, we often don't get to use it because it's cold, it's windy, it's rainy. Last night was a machaya. We sat in the sukkah for hours. It was beautiful, shirt sleeves. When we lived in Phoenix, it was very uncomfortable in the sukkah because of the incredible heat, the excessive heat. But if that's the case, if we're not comfortable either when it's cold or when it's hot, then why do we build a sukkah in the first place? Now, aside from the fact that it is commanded in the Torah, I believe that there's a story I want to relate to you from the late Lord Jonathan Sachs, Zecher Tzaddik Livrocha, former chief rabbi of the United Hebrew Congregations of Great Britain and the Commonwealth, which I heard him tell more than once, particularly when I was at Jewish College. He was then a professor. And he tells the following story, which I believe teaches us a very important lesson about the Sukkah and why we build it. Lord Sachs, he actually wrote this story as well, but he starts off, 25 years earlier, I built my first Sukkah. He writes, it was almost a catastrophe, and it happened like this. My wife and I were newly married and had just settled into our new home. And one morning, leaving the synagogue, a friend said, I'm just off to the local timber yard to buy wood to build a sukkah. Would you like to come with me? Delightedly, I said yes. We didn't have a car, and I'd been wondering how to buy and transport materials to build this rickety hut. So we went back to his home to get the list of things required. The contrast between us, though, could not have been greater. My friend was superbly organized. He had drawn up architectural plans for his temporary dwelling. It was to be a standalone structure with windows and doors, and it was going to require considerable skill at carpentry. He had made a long and a precise list of the materials he needed down to the last nail and screw. I, on the other hand, had no idea how to build anything, let alone a sukkah. In school, I'd always been at the bottom of the class in woodworking, and when it came to practicalities, changing a light bulb was the limit of my ability. Humbled, I followed him to the car, hoping the inspiration would come. And in the timber yard, he rattled off his list of requirements to the storekeeper and ended up with an impressive pile of beams, planks, hinges, screws, nails. I settled for an impromptu list of a few sheets of hardboard, some wooden supports, a bag of nails, and a hammer. And we went off to our respective homes and began hammering away. And before the festival began, we visited each other to see the results of our efforts. His was a structure of beauty, a summer house in which anyone could have faced wandering in the wilderness with equanimity. Ours was, on the other hand, a modest little structure by any standards. I had joined the hardwood to the beams to make sort of 3 square walls, and I had nailed them to one another, and I rested them up against the back wall of the house. It looked like a large packing case, and there was a hole for a door. The festival arrived, and as luck would have it, there was a storm on the second night. The wind howled, and it blew itself into a gale. In the synagogue the next morning, my friend sat there dejected, sad. His sukkah had blown down completely. What, he asked, happened to yours? Well, he said, Jonathan said, when I looked out the window this morning, it was still standing. And he could hardly believe it. His elaborate tabernacle had been overturned while my makeshift little hut had survived. He said, I have to come round and see it, and then look at my plans and see where I went wrong. I don't understand how any sukkah could have stayed up standing in that storm. So we went back to my house after shul to investigate this mystery. We soon found the answer. Unlike his sukkah, our sukkah did not stand alone. It had 3 walls, and for the 4th we had rested against the house. To stop it from collapsing, I had joined one corner to the wall of the house with a single nail. And it was this nail which had held firm during the storm. My friend laughed and said, now I understand the meaning of Sukkot. You can plan, you can construct the most sophisticated building, but if it is not joined to something else, one day the winds will come and blow it down. Alternatively, you can make an improvised shelter which looks frail and rickety, and probably is, but if it's joined, even at one point, on something that is immovable, it will hold fast in the worst storm. The nail in the corner, he said, is what he had forgotten when he built his sukkah. Yes, the fact that one nail can hold up a sukkah can lead one to have great faith. Now, not only did I hear Jonathan tell this story himself, a number of times as it happens, but I also read it in his book. And I took away 2 very important lessons, having nothing to do with faith, but rather with the symbolism and the importance of that nail. The first lesson I took away from this story is that building a sukkah is not a stand-alone mitzvah. It is only a true mitzvah if it is nailed to something more substantial. And that means if it is fully integrated into Jewish life. We also see this when we take the lulav and the etrog. Tomorrow, those of you who are in shul will see that we will take the arba minim, the lulav, the etrog, the hadassim, the aravot. And why do we attach the myrtle and the willow to the lulav? Why do we hold them together with the etrog? Because together they are stronger. Together they are hard to separate and blow away. And together we too are stronger. When we nail together all these aspects of Jewish life, when we don't separate them, then we are stronger, not only as individuals, but as a Jewish community. And the second lesson of the nail is a life lesson. You see, if we don't find support in life, if we don't have that wall to hammer our nail into, then our lives are as fragile as that sukkah. Think about that. If our lives were to hang in the balance, where would we go for support? Hopefully we have a strong wall for that nail. Hopefully we have the support of family, of friends, those who are the walls in our lives. It is what we all need when life becomes fragile, and life will become fragile. It does for everybody. We know that we won't be blown away, but we will have something strong to hold on to, something strong to support us and to keep us upright. And I will also tell you that if you don't have the wall of family, if you don't have the wall of friends, if you won't certainly find it at Renault Depot, I promise you that. You will, however, find it right here, within these walls of our synagogue. Because the synagogue also exists for you to not only hang your nails on, but to enable you to find support of additional walls, those that you need. Friends, congregants, fellow Jews who stand willing and able to be your wall. And hopefully you stand willing to be their walls for them. And like the Sukkah, life is extremely fragile. But we must learn how to overcome the fragility of life. It is why Sukkot comes to teach us that even a nail, a rare fruit, even a lowly willow can help us overcome the fragility and the vicissitudes of life. But only if we use them, and only if we use them together. Only if we make sure that we have a place to secure that nail, to secure it to the wall of family and friends, faith and synagogue. And then to make sure that we serve as that wall, that source of strength, and that source of support for others, so that every Jew, everywhere, has a place to secure his or her nail. And that, my friends, is one lesson of the holiday of Sukkot. And that is something to think about when we enter the Sukkah, grateful for the company and the support of friends, of family, and fellow congregants. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach.